Sarah adjusted her light blue sweater nervously as she entered the cozy restaurant, her eyes scanning the warmly lit space for her blind date. At 31, she hadn't been on a date in over 2 years, not since her husband Michael had passed away from cancer. Her sister Emma had finally convinced her to try meeting someone new, though Sarah's heart still felt fragile and uncertain. The restaurant was charming, with string lights creating a magical ambiance and candles flickering on each table. It was exactly the kind of place she would have chosen for a special evening, which made her more nervous about disappointing her date when he discovered the truth about her situation. She spotted him immediately. Tall, dark-haired, and wearing a navy blue shirt that suggested he had put thought into his appearance. He stood when he saw her, offering a warm smile that seemed genuine rather than polite. "Sarah?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'm David." "Yes? Nice to meet you," Sarah replied, shaking his hand and noticing how his smile reached his eyes. As they were seated at their table, Sarah tried to calm her racing heart. Emma had told her that David was successful, kind, and looking for something serious. What Emma hadn't mentioned was whether he wanted children, or how he might feel about dating a widow with twins. "This place is lovely," Sarah said, looking around at the thoughtfully decorated space. "I'm glad you like it. I wanted somewhere comfortable for our first meeting." David's voice was warm and unhurried, which helped ease Sarah's nerves slightly. As they ordered drinks and appetizers, the conversation flowed more easily than Sarah had expected. David asked thoughtful questions about her work as a graphic designer, and she found herself genuinely interested in hearing about his consulting business. But as the evening progressed, Sarah felt the weight of what she hadn't yet shared. She twisted her wedding ring, which she still wore on her right hand, trying to find the courage to be honest about her life. "Sarah, you seem a bit nervous," David observed gently. "Is everything all right?" Sarah took a deep breath, deciding that honesty was better than pretending to be someone she wasn't. "David, there's something I need to tell you. Something Emma might not have mentioned when she set this up." David's expression became attentive but not alarmed. "I'm listening." "I'm a widow. My husband passed away 2 years ago, and I have twin daughters. They're 4 years old." The words came out in a rush, and Sarah found herself looking down at her hands. "I understand if that changes things. I know it's a lot for someone to take on." David was quiet for a moment, and Sarah braced herself for polite excuses and a quick end to the evening. Instead, when she looked up, she found him smiling softly. "Actually, Emma did mention that you have children. She also told me that you're an amazing mother and that your girls are lucky to have you." Sarah felt surprised relief. "She did?" "She did. And honestly, I was hoping to meet them tonight." Sarah's eyes widened. "You were?" David's smile became slightly mischievous. "I have a confession to make. I asked Emma if it would be possible to make this more of a family dinner than a traditional date. You see, I believe that if someone has children, those children are the most important part of their life. I wanted to meet all of you, not just part of who you are." Before Sarah could respond, she heard familiar voices near the restaurant entrance. Her heart skipped as she saw Emma approaching with 2 curly-haired little girls in tow. "Mama!" The twins called out in unison, running toward their table with the enthusiasm that only 4-year-olds possess. Sarah looked at David in amazement. "You planned this?" "I hoped for it," David admitted. "I asked Emma if she thought you might be more comfortable with the girls here. She said you'd probably be too nervous to suggest it yourself, but that you'd be happier with them nearby." The UA twins reached their table and Sarah quickly made introductions. "Girls, this is Mr. David. David, these are my daughters Lily and Rose." Lily, who was holding a small stuffed fox, looked up at David with curious eyes. "Are you Mama's friend?" "I hope to be," David replied, kneeling down to their eye level. "What's your fox's name?" "This is Rusty," Lily said, holding up the toy proudly. "He goes everywhere with me." Rose, slightly more reserved, stayed closer to Sarah but studied David with interest. Do you like kids? She asked with the directness that children possess. I love kids, David answered honestly. I was hoping to meet you two tonight because your mama is special, and you're the most special part of her life. Sarah felt tears threatening as she watched David interact naturally with her daughters. Most of the men Emma had suggested she meet had seemed uncomfortable with the idea of children, viewing them as complications rather than blessings. As Emma helped the girls get settled at the table, adding booster seats that the restaurant staff quickly provided. Sarah noticed how thoughtfully David had planned everything. The restaurant was family-friendly, with a children's menu and crayons available. He had even requested a table with enough space for car seats and diaper bags, though the twins were past needing those items. How did you know? Sarah asked as the girls became absorbed in coloring placemats. Know what? That this is what I needed. I've been so worried about how to balance dating with being a mother. Most people see it as an either-or situation. David's expression grew serious. Sarah, I lost my father when I was 7. I watched my mother struggle with the same concerns you're facing. She was always worried that her dating would somehow shortchange me, or that men wouldn't want the responsibility of a ready-made family. What happened? She eventually met my stepfather when I was 12. He was the first man who insisted on meeting me before they went on a second date. He said he couldn't love her without loving the most important person in her life. David smiled at the memory. They've been married for 20 years now. Sarah felt something shift in her chest, a loosening of the anxiety she had carried for months about how to move forward with her life. Mr. David, Rose said, looking up from her coloring, do you want to see what I drew? I'd love to, David replied, giving her his full attention as she showed him a drawing of stick figures under a rainbow. That's me and Lily and Mama, Rose explained proudly. It's beautiful. You're a very talented artist, just like your mama. Lily tugged on David's sleeve. Do you want to draw with us? For the next hour, Sarah watched in amazement as David colored with her daughters, listened to their stories about preschool and their pet goldfish, and answered their endless questions with patience and genuine interest. He didn't talk down to them or treat them like obstacles to adult conversation. Instead, he included them naturally in the evening, making them feel valued and heard. Mama, Lily whispered loudly enough for the whole table to hear, I like Mr. David. He's nice. I like him too, Rose added. Can he come to our house sometime? Sarah felt her cheeks flush, but David just smiled. That's up to your mama, girls, but I'd be honored to visit if she invites me. As the evening wound down and Emma prepared to take the tired twins home, David knelt down to say goodbye to the girls. Thank you for sharing your mama with me tonight, he told them seriously. It was the best first date I've ever had. Wasn't a date, Lily giggled. It was dinner. You're absolutely right, David agreed. It was much better than a date. After the girls left with Emma, Sarah and David walked slowly to their cars, neither seeming eager to end the evening. David, I need to ask you something, Sarah said as they reached her car. Why did you really want to meet the girls tonight? Most men would run from this situation. David was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because I've learned that the most meaningful relationships aren't built on convenience or simplicity. They're built on understanding who someone really is and choosing to love all of it. He paused, looking directly into her eyes. You're not just Sarah the graphic designer or Sarah the woman I met online. You're Sarah the mother, Sarah the widow, Sarah who has rebuilt her life with grace and strength. I wanted to meet the real you, and that includes your daughters. Sarah felt tears she had been holding back all evening finally fall. I've been so scared that being a package deal would mean settling for someone who merely tolerated my girls. Sarah, your girls aren't something to tolerate. They're evidence of your capacity for love, your strength, and your priorities. Any man who sees them as anything less than a blessing doesn't deserve any of you. 6 months later, Sarah stood in her kitchen making pancakes while David helped the twins set the table for Sunday breakfast. The sight of him patiently teaching Rose how to fold napkins while Lily arranged flowers they had picked from the garden filled her with a contentment she hadn't thought possible. Mama, Lily called from the dining room. Mr. David says he wants to ask you something important. Sarah looked up to see David approaching with a nervous but determined expression, the twins flanking him like tiny conspirators. Girls, we talked about this, David said gently. It was supposed to be a surprise. We're not good at surprises, Rose announced matter-of-factly. David laughed, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Sarah, I had a whole speech planned, but I think the girls have the right idea. Simple and honest is better. As he knelt down in their kitchen with the morning light streaming through the windows and the twins watching with wide eyes, Sarah realized that this was exactly how she wanted to remember this moment. Not in some fancy restaurant or exotic location, but in the heart of their daily life, surrounded by the people who mattered most. Sarah, will you marry me? Will you let me be part of your family officially? Before Sarah could answer, Lily piped up. Say yes, Mama. We already talked about it and we want Mr. David to stay forever. Sarah laughed through her tears, looking at this man who had seen her whole life and chosen to love all of it. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, we all say yes. As David slipped the ring onto her finger and the twins cheered, Sarah thought about that first evening when she had been so worried about being honest about her circumstances. She had learned that the right person doesn't just accept your complications. They embrace them as part of what makes you who you are. Love, she realized, isn't about finding someone who fits perfectly into your existing life. It's about finding someone who helps you build a life that's even better than what you had imagined possible.